Now, I would remind you, brothers, there's this audience, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. This is incredibly important. For you communications majors out there, you know that we've just seen all the three major facets of communication. There must be a sender, a receiver, and a message. And there we have it. Paul is the sender, the Corinthians are the receivers, and the message is the gospel that he preached to them. But there's something more here than just effective communication. He says, I'm reminding you of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand. In other words, they are standing on that gospel that Paul preached right now, and by which you are being saved. I love that phrase. Paul doesn't say by which you have been saved, although you have. He didn't even say by which you will be saved, although you will. He says by which you are being saved. This ongoing sanctifying work of the gospel. Amen? The gospel is not just a message that you need to hear to get saved. The gospel is a message you need to hear to stay saved, to be saved, to love saved, to live saved, to all kinds of saved. Any kind of saved that saved could ever be requires the gospel. Amen? But then there's this if clause. If you hold fast to the word that I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. A couple of possibilities here. Possibility number one is that Paul just introduced the idea of a Christian losing his or her salvation. That's possibility number one. That what he says here is, if you keep holding on and you keep believing and you keep standing, then you'll be saved. But if you stop, then you won't be saved. Here, I'll give you a simple answer and then a more complex answer. The simple answer suffices for me, but some of you may need more. The simple answer comes from John MacArthur, who says, as only John MacArthur could, if you could lose your salvation, you would. Amen, somebody. How arrogant does a person have to be to believe that it's possible for them to lose their salvation, but they haven't? Who do you have to think you are in order to be saved? I'm a Christian and I'm saved and I'm on my way to heaven when I die. Now there's a possibility that I could mess this thing up, but I haven't. You probably just did. But there's a second idea, and that's the idea that such theology would put Paul at odds, not only with what he teaches in the rest of this passage, but what he teaches everywhere else. He's not ashamed of the gospel. Why? Because the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. It is the gospel that is the power of God unto salvation. Now, not me, not my apprehension of or retention of the gospel. That's the power of God unto salvation, but the gospel and the God of the gospel, to be more precise.